Hey everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in the season finale of The Acolyte. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disneyplus, check that out, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, join with me to break down everything from the season finale of The Acolyte. It's Jon Jon Rico!
Hello.
Hello!
We are here.
We are here.
Yeah, finale time.
I feel like it was a long road to get here.
It was quite a road. It was a road. A road of roads.
I kind of wait, like we were talking about this before we even hit record. It's kind of like this to me, for me, didn't feel like the finale episode. Like if there were like 2 episodes after this, I feel like there could have been a lot more to unpack and it would have felt like a fuller season, I guess. And you kind of brought it up, and I really liked the point that you kind of made, and I apologize if I'm walking over anything that you're actually going to talk about, but that it took a long time to kind of set up some of the things that we saw in this episode. Had we set them up sooner and got to this, like the events of this sooner, I feel like there could have been a lot more stuff we could have had in this season as a whole, type of thing that we would have both enjoyed, type of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, I guess, alternate universe of The Acolyte season 1.
It could have been, right?
I know, right? But I mean, like, I appreciate that you left this off because you knew that I was going to bring it up immediately. We got the back of Yoda's head.
Yeah.
We had a Yoda cameo at the very, very, very end, and I screamed Yoda at my TV screen. That's pretty much what I did. There's a lot I want to unpack. There's a lot I want to talk about and takeaways. But yeah, that was the biggest, instant reaction for me that kind of was like, oh shit, we're getting into a time period where like characters that interact with the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, everything like that are starting to be alive because the lifespans work that way with different species of aliens. But yeah, so I was super excited about that. I'm very happy that we got a little tease of Yoda's head. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for the season finale of The Acolyte?
Yeah, this was quite a road to get to this finale, and I would say all in all, I was mostly satisfied with the way it actually kind of wrapped up a lot of the main storylines. It also kind of left a lot of things unanswered. For better or worse, for season 2, which is something that could be discussed later. We don't know if that's still kind of an up in the air kind of a thing. But I just feel like they left like a lot of the most intriguing aspects kind of open-ended, and I feel you could have at least give us like a little bit more, even like another scene or two with a couple of these kind of big things that they left open-ended. I would have liked to see more of that. But yeah, I think it was it was like I said, I think the pacing of the series overall was kind of the big thing that maybe it took the finale feeling out of this episode almost, especially because we're coming off of the flashback episode. But it turns out that episode actually did a good job of adding some context because the finale ended up actually taking place mostly on Brendok, so that actually kind of played out in its favor there. I just think that for the better part of the series, it just kind of seems like we're jumping back and forth between different moments a lot of time, because we started this episode right off of the end of episode 6, which was 2 weeks ago for us. So it's just like, man, we could have really just had this last week, and then we really set up some big stuff in the finale as well. So yeah, I agree with you with that point as well. The pacing could have been a little bit better, but I think all in all, they set up some really cool stuff and also wrapped up some things in a really cool way.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. You know, some of the things really did get wrapped up, and they got wrapped up, in a way that made sense in universe for this series and stuff like that. Um, I do really appreciate that. It did start out immediately following episode 6. Like, we still had Osha in the helmet
Yeah.
breathing and everything. Like, it was like, hey, remember that last episode? That didn't happen in that time. Like, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
just kind of immediately popped in.
If they just told this story linearly, I think it would have actually like been a lot better in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would have been 2 episodes starting off of just like little girls and witches and stuff like that, but you would have gotten some interesting stuff with the Jedi before, and then kind of getting like this jump forward to them later on, then kind of kicking off a real story after that. I think it would have been really interesting.
Right. And we could have had a couple flashback scenes, not full episodes of flashbacks.
Yeah, I think
We
you
could've
can
had-
integrating between past and present would have been a better flow. I think like devoting full episodes solely to flashbacks was like probably the most jarring aspect of it sometimes.
Right. No, I agree. This kind of leads into my takeaway. So, do you want to get to some takeaways?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right. I'm gonna kick off takeaways only because you were already kind of getting along the lines of things that kind of got wrapped up correctly or very well and stuff like that, and obviously more questions than what we got answered. But
Mhm.
the way that series ends is kind of like I was saying, and in what you would expect for like a series, like a suspense, twisty, like detective series to end, where the villain kind of the villain's side, the villainous side, I guess, wins like in the long run, because we get Osha choosing the dark side path. We get Venestra kind of covering up a cover up, like. I get it. Soul was kind of the one who did something wrong, and so did the rest of the Jedi that were stationed on the planet with him. So it kind of wraps up with his death, but like she kind of just made him kind of the scapegoat.
Yeah.
It was never like, oh, it was the rest, it was everyone, and it was covered up, and we figured it out, like type of thing. It was all just no. This was Soul. He took them all out, like he did. So I mean. It's kind like I said, it's kind of like a detective story where you just kind of have a cover up of a cover up to kind of save the asses of the rest of the Jedi in this. But we kind of get like the allude that this is not going to go very well for the Jedi in the coming years, because we're getting the Senate kind of wanting to question and investigate the Jedi as a whole and stuff like that. So we got a rocky road ahead for the Jedi. In general, just like the association of the Jedi, the religion of the Jedi in general, the policing, I guess, of the Jedi in general is going to be a little dark. Not only that, but I mean, we get Osha's obviously pretty strong with the dark side, so she's going to be a major threat, against whoever she's going to go after this.
Yeah, fully embraced it at this point,
right? So I just kind of it was kind of just like that dirty, gritty, investigation ending where it's like, everything like certain things, big things got tied up, but then, you pin the blame on something that wasn't fully true. And is there a threat out there still? Like, a couple people might know that there is, but not everybody. Like, so it's just kind of like messy. Like that's the only way I can really describe it, is messy in general. And that's not like a critique of the the writing or anything like that, but I just mean in universe, it's a very messy kind of ending where we kind of it seems like things are resolved, but there's gonna be some like things that are gonna happen after this that are gonna harm the Jedi as a whole, and everybody else if Osha decides to go completely dark side and start like conflicts and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm interested. If we get a season 2, I'm kind of really interested. I'll get more to that with my predictions and stuff like that. But I'm interested to know if we're gonna have some, like, if we're gonna go fully dark, because this almost seemed like when we were watching Tales of the Empire, and we knew that they were gonna be villains that we were following, like origin stories of villains, stuff like that. this kind of basically seems like Osha's villain origin story.
Yeah.
Like she's fully embraced that. But not only that, I mean, we're seeing kind of the downfall or the slow downfall of the Jedi as a whole. So it's like all systems are bad. Like
Yeah.
it's downward for everything. It kind of leaves it on just this dark note. So I'm wondering if the season 2, if we're gonna really explore those dark lines, the darkest path, I guess. But before I get too far into like predictions and stuff like that, Rico, what were some of your takeaways from the season finale?
Yeah, they really did kind of lean in, like we've been kind of saying the whole season. They really did lean into the whole like the Jedi kind of being the corrupt police force of kind of the series. And the end of the show really kind of like hammered that nail really in there for me, especially when it comes to Vanessa, because we were talking about. I think her decision to cover things up might have come when she sensed Chimere on the planet, and then I thought it was really interesting that they had that moment where she like legitimately like it might be because he had his helmet off too, because I don't think them afterwards, and then of course they don't have that we don't get the moment where they get to confront each other too, which I was like, dang it, that's like another one of those things that they're kind of leaving hanging for us, just kind of like intrigue us to it into a possible season 2, because I really want to see more of that, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where she's kind of like that, the captain or whatever of that whole detective squad. It's like there's always like that one person who's really corrupt at the beginning, and she's just kind of someone who's kind of giving me like that weird feeling too. So the fact that she gave this decision to kind of throw Soul under the bus, that someone that she said that was her friend, it was a very interesting choice. And then just to kind of having her report to Yoda too at the end, that I'm very curious to see how that is going to play into the story somehow, because now you're throwing in a character who could have known what's going on during the Phantom Menace too, but I still don't think she is aware that of the possible Sith too, and we'll talk about that later on. But man, one of my favorite parts of this entire episode, of course, was the fight between Soul and Chimera on Brendok. Right again, and the way they cut between the hand-to-hand combat between May and Osha too. It was very reminiscent to me of episode 3, of course, when you had the fight between Palpatine and Yoda, cutting between that and the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader, Anakin. And of course, there's one of my favorite shots too is when Bane and Osha kind of collide, I think feet or whatever, like collide kicks, and then immediately transitions to a Chimera and Soul colliding lightsabers. I thought that was a really cool transition. There's a couple little quirky like slow-mo moments there that I was like a little bit iffy on, but then there was one really cool moment where Soul deflects Chimera and his 2 lightsabers with the Force, and I was like, that was really badass. So yeah, there's some really like cool moments in the details of the fight. Another moment I really love is when their lightsabers are collided and the sparks are kind of flying off of Chimera's helmet. Just kind of little things like that, just kind of add little. It makes the fight themselves unique. Like when you refer to that fight, like those are the little details that make you think of that fight specifically. So I really did enjoy that, and the way it kind of ended with like that classic kind of like almost like samurai fight where they kind of slash through the opponent, but in this case he just kind of broke the lightsaber. But it all leads up to the big kind of like reveal moment too, where Saul ultimately confesses to his crime of killing Anasaya to May, but Osha also hears much, not to his knowledge, but he doesn't realize till after he says it that Osha also heard it, and that's kind of what completely completes her turn to the dark side, right? Like that now she's got those feelings that she can kind of channel, and it leads to this moment where she force chokes Soul to death, and I thought that was a really dark way to go about it. I was not expecting. I thought she was going to maybe stab him with the lightsaber, like kind of keep it clean and fast. But she went the slow choke route, which was really dark, and just kind of watching the way she closed her hand to kind of finish the job was really. I was surprised they went there. Like to be honest, like with how light the show has been. When you got like a thing, you got this show where you got like this like crazy little chipmunk character being all goofy, like running around when he's not needed, and then you got like a moment like this where like a Jedi is being killed with a force choke by his former Padawan to a degree, or at least like a former pupil of his. I don't even know if it was even like a Padawan for sure. But yeah, that was really cool. And really, like, I love it that it kind of went that way, and it's like what it kind of led to from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I loved the fight scenes, both of them that you mentioned. Even like between Chimera and Soul, absolutely. I'm always here for a good lightsaber battle. But yeah, Osha and Maze was choreographed really well too. I mean,
Yeah, for
it
hand
was
to hand.
yeah, it was cool seeing that they were both, you know, exactly equal type of thing. So like it was always like punch for punch, kick for
Mhm.
kick. Like it was perfect in representing the point that they've been driving home is that they are, you know, two of the same person basically, which is the, you know, kind of
Well, yeah, they literally do.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's kind of the reveal that wasn't really a reveal because we've kind of been told that pretty much the entire time. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It was kind of just shown also in fighting where they're exactly balanced, they're exactly equal. Yeah, the weird part about the OSHA killing Soul and the whole reason that OSHA and Chimera, you know, blasted off to get there in the first place was to stop May from doing that. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering if OSHA really saw herself doing that and thought it was May doing that, or like,
Maybe.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Or if it was kind of like she made her own future by going there type of thing. And had she stayed away, maybe May would have killed Soul. But like, you know what I mean? But May even said, like, I want him to have to pay for his crimes. I want him to go to the Senate and
Mhm.
you know, all this stuff. So very, very interesting. Like you said, a lot of questions, a lot of things that, you know, I would really like to see explored, and I'm really interested.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, we get, you know, another season, whether we get maybe some graphic novels or some book, like you know what I mean. Like it would be, I would be interested into looking into some of that, like the fallout of that, kind of exploring things. Yeah, but
But one
what?
other thing I do want to
Oh,
mention is we got to see the bleeding of a kyber crystal too after
yeah,
May take it, and she kind of did it in a way that's kind of known as like a Sith rite of passage too, because I think the way the Sith, because there are fallen Jedi who have bleeding their kyber crystals before. I think most notably we saw it in Jedi Survivor, the most recent video game. There was a High Republic Jedi named Dagan Gera who kind of comes out like a stasis, and he kind of comes out there pretty like mentally fucked up, and he's not trusting the Jedi anymore. And we kind of see him like disassemble his lightsaber and turn his his yellow kyber crystal red like immediately too. And then of course there's a whole comic kind of going through Vader's journey of kind of bleeding his own kyber crystal too. His journey is a lot more intense. I think it's because he was a lot more of a conflicted character. I think, but seeing a character like Osha, and then of course going back to a character like Dagan Gera, like I just mentioned, like two characters that are very like convinced of their emotions, like their dark feelings, and the way like the crystal was able to bleed itself so easily was really cool to watch. Like either way that it kind of like steadily went from the bottom to the top to like a fully bled crystal. But it was really cool to kind of see that I think in live action for the first time too.
yeah, absolutely. That was definitely a cool part to see. But you want to get to some predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off predictions?
Okay, so there's something that we really need to talk about here because when Osha and Chimera I think are first about to leave the planet that we still don't know the name of that planet yet. There's still speculation on what that is. But when they're going to leave to go to Brendok, we see this this creepy little hand come out onto the cave, and then we see this hooded figure that looks like Immune. And I'm pretty damn sure that just gave us a Darth Plagueis cameo without even like one with only giving us that one little shot of him and not really following up with it because we get that one shot at the end of the episode where they're on the beach holding hands and the lightsaber. And I'm like, you're right there. He's got to be right there. You like, and you've kind of like given this little hint that there's somebody else in play too. Like I would have really liked to have seen Chimera almost like introducing Osha to Plagueis, like this is my master, and then we can kind of like follow up from there. But man, have I ever told you the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Like that is like it's a character that I've been waiting to see in Star Wars in general for a long time because he's only been alluded to ever. We've never really gotten like a physical representation of him in any kind of form of comics, video games, or even animation. So I think we maybe yeah. So and we've heard that great scene in episode 3 is just obviously like the whole one of the big bases of just like the whole luring Anakin to the Sith in general, right? So I think that one scene where Soul is kind of talking about the whole Virgins and how the twins are created, and how explaining how they're one person that was really split off into two by the witches, and then kind of seeing how like when the way Chimera reacts to that when he hears that they're created with the Force, like I think that kind of plays into how possibly Plagueis kind of learns that information and how he's able to kind of maybe manipulate life and life and death, like he's you know, like the story says from Palpatine. I'm also wondering if maybe he even knows if Mother Coral is still out there, maybe, and that's who he maybe he directly learns the information from her. That's kind of one of the only like ways I can see that happening because uh, we get the one scene in the beginning of the episode where Chimera is trying to take off the helmet and his eyes go black.
Right.
And I was at first I got a little scared because I was like, oh no, they're gonna reveal like Mother Coral is like here right now, like that's how we're gonna find out. But I think what that really was actually like Osha's kind of whole thing and him actually being possessed by Osha, almost like accidentally, and that was kind of like the weird part of that, which but it got me a little bit scared for a second. So I think that's also like one of those like open-ended things that we still don't know about. Like we can still bring in Mother Coral later on, which I hope they don't. But I wonder if Plagueis is actually like a Sith master at this point, or if he's still in his apprentice stage to his master, I think, which is Darth Tenebrous, another really cool character. But I wonder if this is kind of this whole thing where Chimera is kind of trying to play this whole thing where he's kind of trying to like overthrow his own Sith master, which could be Tenebrous, because I noticed that I believe Tenebrous had like his own, like he had two different sets of apprentices at one point. So yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what they're going to do there, how Plagueis is going to possibly play into the story if they do continue in season 2. Yeah, this is the part of the series I really wanted to see from the get go. Like if you had said the first half of the season with this stuff and then led the last half of the season with some Plagueis stuff, like I think you would have really won some people over. But yeah, now my mind is like reeling from like, whoa, you actually went there with Plagueis, so now you got to like really deliver on that front.
Yeah, and I to follow that up, I really think like if we were to get a season 2, and this is kind of what I was already starting to allude to when I was talking about my takeaways and stuff, are we going to have a season that's pretty much all concerned with the dark side in general type of thing? I mean, we really could. We could have a season that completely pretty much stands on its own.
What I wanted the
Really,
show to be too.
yeah,
That's like when I heard about it, that's what I wanted.
yeah, and I mean all aspects of the dark side, meaning that like darkest timeline, being that like this is the downfall of the Jedi, like as an organized policing force, and it's all like distrust become like of them and stuff like that, and it also leads to finding more about what's happening with Osha and Chimera and Plagueis and everything. Like we really could get a full season kind of devoted to really the darkest side, I guess, in general, like dark side in general, but like the darkest side in general. Like everything's kind of like almost like the Infinity War to Endgame type of thing, where it's
Right.
like all roads lead to what's going to happen, and it's dark, and then like we really don't pay attention to kind of the lighter stuff that we had in this season.
Yeah,
type of
especially with the way the Jedi are at the beginning of the Phantom Menace, because I believe at that point they're kind of being told what to do by the Senate, like they're being sent on
Right.
missions on the Senate's behalf. So I think, yeah, I think they like with the senator being played by David Harewood. I think with like the way you get like you mentioned the whole like it kind of feels like when you're bringing in like internal affairs to like
Yeah,
the police station, right? And now they're gonna come in and clean house, and now they're gonna become like this tool for their government now. As and we're starting to see the seeds kind of get planted for that, which I think is very interesting as well.
exactly. Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. And kind of just like you said, there's so many questions that they can, use to build a really, really solid season 2.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like we have no idea. We still don't even know, how May survived from when she was what, 8? Like we know she got out through the tunnel and she went to the tree, but then we don't have anything else type of thing. Like you know what I mean? So like,
yeah. I guess we're supposed to assume that she just made her way on her own from there, but even then, I don't even understand it. Yeah.
or just like you were saying, we bring in Coral
Mhm.
type of thing, and that's how she kind of survived, and she's still out there somewhere, and you know what I mean. And then somehow she got her connected with Chimera and all this. Like there's so much, there's so many different directions they could go,
Yeah.
and that's why like I'd like to see a season 2, but I'd like to see a season 2 if they explore the dark side aspects of season 1, like to go forward with that, because we kind of spent a lot kind of looking at things from the Jedi side. So like, what if we had a season 2 where really our main focus is the dark side, and then we have like some glimpses of what's happening with the Jedi, and the Jedi starting to get relegated to, they're not in control as much as they were before, the like distrust, or what, like you said, where the Senate's kind of relegating them and stuff like that more so. And that's just kind of, we get glimpses of that. Also, we get glimpses of, May kind of trying on a new kind of, mystery solving or something like that, where she's trying to figure out what happened to her memories and stuff like that. Because the last thing she remembers is from the fire, being 8 years old.
Right.
So like there's very easy that we can use her kind of. I know she didn't kind of accept the light side, but like, you know what I mean? Like her kind of being the representation of kind of the light side, because she's kind of in custody of the Jedi right now. And then having, Osha and Chimere and, Pelagus kind of being the dark side, but them being kind of the main focus of a season 2, like, would be very interesting. And kind of, I feel like it would also balance out the show if we kind of had, the main focus being the Jedi, and then we had the offshoot of other things. Like for season 1, if we had the exact opposite for season 2, it would kind of balance it out as the series as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, this episode's called The Acolyte too. I think it was interesting that they waited to have the final episode of the season be called the title of the show. So it's like we had this whole setup to kind of get to what feels like it's going to be like now. It felt like we got the prequel. Like this whole first season felt like a season 0 as opposed to a season 1. It's like now I'm ready for season 1 of the show. Like now we have like these 2 apprentices, the 2 of the dark side. Now we get to see them kind of like navigate their way. And also this gets interesting enough. I actually like the idea of like a Sith, like almost like a love story, because there's no way it's going to end well. The way the way these guys form attachments and stuff like that, there's no way a story between like a Chimere and Osha, with the way they kind of betray the chemistry between those 2, it's gonna have a bad ending, I think, regardless. And I'm kind of interested to see the kind of like this dark side spin on that kind of a story.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I mean, if we get a season 2, I would really, like I said, I just would like to see more dark side focus for a season 2, because I think that'd be interesting. But yeah, I'm here for it. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of the season finale? What did you think of season 1 as a whole? And are you looking for a season 2? And if you are, like, what are you looking for in a season 2 and moving forward with these characters in general? Whether we get them, live action in a season 2, whether we get them in some graphic novels, maybe even a book, like we can get different mediums of this to kind of, further the story and stuff like that. No wrong answers, but let us know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.